Good evening, dear viewers of the Sompon Global TV, and welcome to our 20th edition of the program, The Debate. I am your humble host, Mbolifor Elvis Mbolifor, and today with me in the studio, I have Sompon Vera and Pennelope Kapere, who will be sitting on this day for the debate. We have been presenting topics here based on the Agenda 2063. But today we thought that we should talk actually about the agenda to see how many people have an idea about it and how popular this agenda is. And our topic for today is the Agenda 2063 is unpopular. It's the communication strategy of the AU to create awareness, proving effective in the continent and in the diaspora. We will be basing on this to see how much awareness has been created and how people are actually vested with this agenda, because this is what we are working on Sompon Global TV. Join me, welcome Ma'am Vera Sompon and Pennelope Kapere, who are sitting in today for the debate. You're welcome to Sompon Global TV.
Thank you.
Okay, I will begin with Ma'am Vera. How did you come to know about this Agenda 2063? Because many people are so unaware of it, but it seems like you are so vested and knowledgeable about this agenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbolifor. I greet everyone who is viewing us and listening to us. You're welcome to the Sompon Global TV. This is a platform where we had created some years back so that we can have such conversations. And I am very glad for the question, Mr. Mbolifor, because that was 2015. You remember that during this time we had migration, young people migrating from the African continent to Germany and to Europe. And many young people lost their lives in the Mediterranean seas. We had about 4,000 people that were recorded. These are people that we could really it could be recorded that they really died in the Mediterranean Sea. And because I work in Germany with the Agenda 2030, I began asking a lot of questions. What do we have for the continent that can really belong to us and that we can really come together and really identify with it? So while I was working with the agenda also here, I just kept thinking of something particularly for the African continent. Of course, when I start thinking about something, then I don't stop by thinking. I start doing the actions and the work. And therefore, I went to Cameroon, particularly 2016, and I had a conversation with the African Union Decentralization Office and to find out what they do. And so that was the start of the conversation, and that was my encounter with the Agenda 2063. That was the moment that the chief in charge of the decentralization office, of the African Union in Cameroon, mentioned the fact that, hey, we have such an agenda. It's an amazing agenda. And since then, I have been consciously working on that. But I think when we came back, and we have been doing projects now and then, and for us it was becoming very important that we really help in the popularization of this agenda, because it is an agenda for the African people by the African people. And there's nothing as beautiful as having an agenda, even if it is not yet where we want it to be. And many people criticize that it is too far, but at least we have an agenda. And so I am very happy to be part of this agenda. And I'm hoping that we're going to have this kind of a conversation more often, so that more of the diasporans and more of the African people get to possess this agenda, because this agenda belongs to us all, and we have to all work towards the achieving of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You say Agenda 2063 is for the African people and by the African people. I take Penelope, who has been missing on this platform for a while. Always a pleasure for us to have you. Penelope, you're welcome.
Thank you.
When did you get to know about Agenda 2063?
I'm going to be honest. I knew about Agenda 2030, but in honesty, Agenda 2063, I only found out about it after joining the debate team. And as far as wanting to be hopeful about the objectives that have been outlined, I am probably of the school of thought that indicates that it's unpopular. And there's a few reasons that I think the Agenda 2063 is unpopular. I don't know if you wanted me to go into it now or.
Okay. All right. I wanted to know how you got to know about the agenda, and you rightly say it is when you join this debate team because we have been presenting different topics, and all the topics are always geared to one of the aspirations of the Agenda 2063. And we are happy to know that through our program, you were informed about this agenda. And that is actually what we are doing. We want to make the youth to know about this agenda because an agenda that will follow them and will see them through, and they will enjoy equally the outcomes of this agenda. Thank you so much for joining our program and equally for gaining something from our program. And we are still in the 10-year implementation plan. Do you think the pace and achievements up till date by the AU or by this agenda, those things that were put in place, those aspirations that were put in place, those plans that were put in place, that by 10 years from the day it was created, will actually be put, on the rails, and that people will be able to appreciate that this has been done? Do you think that the achievements so far up to this level can be laudable?
I'll
Okay.
take that. I'll take that
Okay.
question. I don't think it would. Not in the sense that what I'm struggling with the Agenda 2063 is I don't want us to start admiring the problem without providing solutions. And for me, the Agenda 2063 just seems like it's so much more far-fetched because it outlined issues that we know on the ground as African people and as Africans in diaspora, yet there is not any tangible change that we have seen. And I would give, for example, just 2020, we have seen, you indicated that this is for the youth to feel empowered. However, as a youth, as an African youth at the moment, I don't feel empowered, especially with regard with what happened in Nigeria with NSARS. I think things where we have such civil unrest within our own communities, it is challenging to feel encouraged and hopeful about the future of Africa, especially when with particular NSAS, that brutality was coming at the hands of our police officers who are meant to protect us and our government leaders who are meant to represent us. So with regards to that, when the agenda initiates and says they want a cohesive community, a one united Africa, this is not portraying what they initiate. So they don't. I worry about with this agenda, it puts forward a lot of great points without practicality, and we have not seen any of our governments or any of our leaders really sought to implement this on a pragmatic level. We're not seeing it. And if anything, this year has exposed a lot more issues that we have always known, even with regards to COVID, lack of infrastructures with education, healthcare. These are basics, right, that the agenda encourages and says is our basic right. This is what they want to pursue. However, it's not being done. And with a country like Nigeria that is 60 years old, and we are asking for another 50 years for this to be implemented. How many more years do we give and make exceptions and excuses for our leaders and the lack of, this is post-colonialism. So for me, it's very frustrating, to be honest with you, when I read the agenda, seeing what they were trying to pursue. And I just have questions. Where did they get these numbers from? I think there's numbers about 1 in 4 people will be employed by 2063. How? What are they going to use? What measures have they used? What data did they use to even come up with these objectives? So it is frustrating. I think I'm of the school of thought that I don't want to admire the problem. I'm looking for solutions and practical solutions. And that's my position at the moment. So I don't think it's popular on those grounds.
Okay, you talk of non-tangible change on the ground. Great
So
points
maybe I
put
can
forward.
I want to add some few stuff to this because I think that
Okay.
it's so important that we get personally. It's important that I identify my stand on this. I think that I am amongst the people who think that the people have to have the government in their hands, and so each time that we want to put the government in another person's hands, then we have a problem because we get to have this kind of blame game that is happening usually and most of the time. For me, I think that the Agenda 2030 is so well known. And most of us, the Africans, we are working with the agenda. Now, we have, and the Agenda 2030 doesn't make it a perfect agenda without its challenges. I mean, the things of the Agenda 2030 are the things we all know. The difference in the Agenda 30 is now they have even added more other European countries into it, so that though we feel like, okay, it is something for the whole world, but in actual sense, nothing spectacular is in that agenda. I also think that uh, unfortunately, the Agenda 2063 has also somehow been taken from the Agenda 2030. Now, my challenge with the fact that it is not popularized and that we are not aware of it is because maybe the African Union really do not understand how to spread this information like the Agenda 2030 have been doing to spread the information. Nonetheless, I believe that it is our responsibilities as the individual citizens of a nation to also carry this along. I think and I believe that if we all work hand in hand and understand the role of politics and understand that we are the politicians we are talking about, understand that we are the people that we are supposed to build. Understand, of course, that we need all the resources and we need all the development. But you know what? I have come to the realization that the things I cannot change, I leave it where it is. And then I work with those things that I can change. And that's one of the reasons why we started the agenda, the debate, because we could have said, okay, well, it's not going to be a good agenda and we will not get there by the way. And of course, remember, we are not young now. So we would have said, by the way, 2063, oh God, is going to be for the very young people. But no, we choose to say, no, we want to be a part of it. So instead of being amongst those to complain and almost make us feel and think that nothing good comes from Africa, we choose to support it so that we can work hand in hand. I know it's a difficult mindset, but I think that we have to get out of this principle and thought of wanting to just to put our own things down so that we can start working on how we can be part of it so that we improve the situation and not just waiting for the government and the African Union to do the work.
Thank you so much for that presentation. You see, Africans have to actually take the governments in their hands and to make the agenda well known, like what we are doing already. You see, it's our responsibility to carry and spread this agenda and build our own continent with our own hands. Thank you so much for those powerful words. And I was just about to list some of the the achievements that were supposed to be already by the first 10 years, because the agenda talks about an integrated high-speed network to connect African capitals, to create a continental free trade zones, an African virtual e-university, free movement of people, and the biggest of all is silencing the guns. Up to this level, Penelope, can you say we are getting there 7 years after
To take into
silencing the
consideration
guns?
consideration to what Mama Vera said, I do agree. I think we obviously have to change our mindset and being very much more forward thinking, thinking of self-determination, thinking of providing the right resources to build ourselves up. However, it is also very difficult to not discuss the reality of what is going on the ground. And I think those are things that we should start maybe not fantasizing and dwelling on, but really being realistic and being open enough to have that conversation to say, we're probably not where we should be, especially with regard to what COVID happened. It exposed a lot of lack in just resources with regards to how Africa is managed. In a lot of our population is informal workers, so it impacted us economically so much more. The infrastructure, with the lack of infrastructure, with hospitals, they didn't have the capacity to deal with the demand. And these are things that the agenda is indicating, and has always indicated, is your birthright to have clean water, to go to we have doctors who are qualified, who can do the work. I am with you. We're not asking for any international influence, but we're saying let's address the issue on the ground. If I, as a young person, and I know in Africa, I think 60% of the population are young people. If they stand up to protest against something like what happened in Nigeria, to say this is wrong, actually they are embodying what Agenda 2063 is about, because it talks about freedom and democracy. And that's what they did. But if you're being criminalized after speaking against something that is wrong, then it's not, we're just being hopeful for no reason. And that's frustrating to a lot of young people like myself, because it's like it's called gaslight. You're telling me something that I know is not possible. And that's the problem right now. A lot of people do not feel hopeful because we try and embody that freedom. We try and seek that change, but we are being stopped by certain leaders. We're not blaming everyone, but there is an issue. And unless we speak about it, we're just going to be, fantasizing about something that could happen in Narnia somewhere, and we never reach there. And that's a problem that I think is an issue. And yes, 7 years on, unfortunately, there's more civil unrest, and it's like there's nobody to be held accountable for it. And that's really wrong, I think.
Thank you.
This is a very interesting conversation. I like this conversation, and I like the fact that we are also having this conversation with young people. And that's the reason why we really started up the debate, because we wanted to have these conversations going on. And of course, our intention also is to package all what we have done and then send it to them, to the African Union, so that they see that there are people out there wanting to support their work and also wanting to do their work. So I see it on two sides, or maybe three sides. I see it one, the agenda up to now for the 10 years plans that we're giving. Honestly speaking, not much has been done. We can say really not much, or nothing has been achieved for the 10 years plan now. This year, for example, they were supposed to have guns, close everything in security. So we didn't see that. I have the impression that the gods of the air heard this, and then they decided to come out with more guns this year. So they really didn't do that. And then we also had the idea of the technology with the connection and internet. And because one of the plans was really to have the e-learning, and which is not really implemented to now, because we really have hard time working with our young people also back home in Africa. We really have it difficult to connect with them. Even when we have these conversations and we have to have connection with those who are in the African continent, we really usually have hard time. Even with the Mr. Moderator, we usually will have to pray that his network works. So yes, in that line, we can say the plans for the 10 years, really much has not been done, right? Nonetheless, now I'm talking not only as an African, but I always want to have that space whereby I can also reflect and put myself in the shoes of our politicians, or put myself in the shoes of a business person, or put myself again in the shoe of a policymaker. Most of the time, I have the impression that when we sit back, we look at things from the glass and think it is just easy to be done. Now, the proof is that in your own very homes, some rules are so difficult to put and to be established. if in our very homes and in our very environment, our quarter, our neighborhood, where the government must not necessarily come there and install peace, security, and talk about some things, we are not able to organize ourselves, then it is challenging. Of course, we have those who have succeeded to organize themselves, and the government has come in again with rioting and challenge and all that. So it's both sides. So I think one way we see that the African Union really have not done so well to popularize this agenda, have not even done well to be able to speak about the agenda. I even have the impression that they may be even ashamed of this agenda because, as some people say, it's really, really far first, right? On the other hand, I think that we have to start doing the work. Like I said, you said that you discovered the agenda with the debate, for example. Many other people we spoke to, about 20 diasporans on the debate for today, and I was so shocked that so many people are really working with the African continent, but very few are really using the agenda, or again can really say they understand the agenda. In as much as the works that they do are in the agenda, right? So, which would have been a simple thing to say, hey, we talk about this agenda because what we are doing, by the way, is in the agenda. So it's like you have a father that it protects your work, and you can keep doing your work. And even if he doesn't give you the money for the work, you just keep doing, hoping that it will be fine. I still stay for the fact that it is good to have hope. And I have hope in my Africa. I have hope in my young people. I have hope that the old people will one day die and we are going to rise. And until then, we have to keep doing this work, and we have to keep giving, putting our own zems or our own salt into the thing as little as we can. And we should not lose that hope.
Thank you so much. You already were touching a point that I wanted to ask you, whether the African diasporans are really involved in popularizing this Agenda 2063, because they have all it takes. They have good connection, at least I say good in quotes, because equally it's not always everywhere. And equally, they have access to documentation, even though documentation is everywhere, but it's easy for them to get the documents. Do you think they really popularizing this agenda well? Because I was just speaking with some facilitators today, and they were like, when they saw the poster, they were asking, "What is Agenda 2063? We have been seeing this on your posters. What is it actually about?" And I was like, maybe this agenda should actually be included in our curricula, so that they get to talk about it to students, to people, so that they can become vested. Do you really think, Mam Vera, the diaspora are aware, talk less of popularizing this agenda? Because we would have expected to find many of them here, given that the posters are always on, messages are sent, but then people are still like, what is this actually about? Popularization of the Agenda 2063. Are the diasporans really aware even of it?
So don't forget that Penny is also a diaspora. And so when you talk about diaspora, Pennelope is also in the diaspora, right, Penny? I guess you're
Yes,
also in the diaspora in the UK.
definitely.
So
Okay.
yeah, she's in the UK, so she's in the diaspora, so she's on the right platform. And of course, if she's aware of it, then we are already working towards that, right?
What?
But
Mm,
I think that, honestly speaking, when I I discovered you and your team, you were really looking for diasporas, and that was the moment it dawned on me that, hey, maybe very few people are really aware of this. So I decided to call the people I thought and I believed they were going to be very informed about the program, and most of them said, oops, they were not really informed about the program. So if they had to talk, then I had to brief them. And so I said, oops, I really will not be able to have the chance to brief everyone and to brief them. So I think that the diasporas, they're really doing their best, the best they can do. And that's the best they can do. We can't force people to do what they can't do. So we all are doing the best we can do with the limited resources we are having. And I think that it is the assignment of the African Union to really look back and say, how can we involve the diasporas into this work? Now, I think if the African Union really takes time to reflect on this, then they will come to the realization that for this assignment to be popularized, it needs funding, it needs money. Now, you said that the diaspora, they have access to many things and resources. True. But now remember that every program and projects that the diaspora offers usually is backed up by one specific funding, or again one specific sponsor behind, or again they do it on a volunteer basis. Now we choose to do that out of the passion that we have. That's why we brought up this program. But actually, when we do Agenda 2030, we get funding for that. So indirectly, it's been popularized because we talk about it, we inform people about it, right? And so I think that we in the diaspora, we are doing as much as we can with the limited resources that we are having. And I think we can do more if the African Union recognizes the importance and the role of the diaspora in the popularization of this agenda. Like I said, up to now, the Sompon Social Service has been doing the work through the debate and many other projects we have been offering and doing. But we can't keep doing this forever with our own resources only. So we can do just as much as we can, right? But imagine that the African Union gives the funding for this, then we will be able to achieve more. And not just the Sompon Social Service, but also many other organizations that are here and are really doing amazing work with regards to Africa and development. To the answer, if the diasporas are really involved, yeah, yes and no. They're involved indirectly because they're working with African continent, they are supporting, but not directly under the banner of the agenda, and not directly with the agenda. I think that's what I can say for that. But at least they are doing a lot, and they're doing some things that one can really say it is in line with the agenda, but unfortunately, maybe they just don't know that it's in line with the agenda and they are not aware of the agenda.
Thank you so much. You'll be leaving us very soon. But before you leave us, I want you to uh, what encouraging words can you dish out to those who are listening to us? You have been scouting so hard that this agenda be known by many. It's the essence equally of this program, the debate, and we've been basing on that. All our topics are always linked to an aspiration. What can you say to those who are listening to us now as a word of encouragement about this agenda? How can we popularize this agenda together for those who are listening to you right now?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Mr. Mbolifor. I just want to plead with our people. If there is change to take place, it will have to begin with us, from within us. Always remember that each time you point at one finger to the leader, to any other leader, remember that you are a leader in your own space. And therefore, the other four fingers point back at you and asking you the question, what have you done at your little corner? I want to encourage us to understand that a lot of things happen. I mean, we should also remember that the African Union, even though it's for the Africans, built by Africans, and it's a political body, a lot of influence, Western influence, is still involved. And it means that this African Union, even though it is a body for the African continent, is still being manipulated by the Western. And for our people. When I say our people, I mean our leaders who are there and governing us. They need a renewal of the mind, and they really need to trust that their people will believe them and follow them, help them. But up to that time, our people who are in the diaspora really have the ability to do more, because at least we have learned the rules of the oppressor. We understand how they function, and we can, in our own ways now, do the work more than our people who are maybe still back home, and even those who are in those government positions. As for me, that's why we started up the film. If you have watched the film, The Africans has a philosophy. The philosophy is the people rule, the people are in charge, and not the government. And I want to encourage our people listening. I wish they knew that the very people they are hoping that they will be the change are the very people that they have put to destroy them. Now you know that the plan of the oppressor is to bring segregation, bring division, bring disunity, so that we should never walk hand in hand. If you get this information, then your assignment and my assignment is to work so hard to break the yokes of the oppressor upon our necks. And this we can do not by blaming any other person, because if you were in that position, I really doubt what you would do much different, as long as the oppressor is on your head. So I think that we need a renewal of our minds, and we need to go deep into us and realize that if we want to change, the change begins from ourselves, then it goes into our home, in our room, then we can now change our neighborhood, we can now change our quarters, we can change our country, and then we can change the world. So any changes that have to take place, let it start from within. And we're well able to do it, especially us here in the diaspora. So I encourage my people to also always follow us with the agenda, because it is our agenda, and we can do it, and we will do it, not for our sake, but for the sake of our young people that are coming. It is Agenda 2063. So some of us may not profit from it. So we have to do it. And I am doing it because of my children and their grandchildren. So let's take this as our own and do it. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you so much. We said Agenda 2063 was for Africans and by Africans, and we need to work hand in gloves and do what we can so that this agenda actually comes to realization. And like you put it, many of us will not be there, but we have to put hands on deck to make sure that Africa be a place to be by 2063. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you on board. We are always
Thank you.
blessed because you're always a resource person and you make the conversation really flow. I want to take this opportunity now to salute all those who are watching us live on Facebook and on YouTube. I'm talking about Adebowale Bakari, who is watching us, Fuman Emmanuel, Lee Wal, we have Millie Nanfuma, Tukia Motupa, and Mori Okeyo, who is following us very closely. We equally have Nandi Ray Ekome. Thank you so much for joining us, and we are hoping that you share our link so that many youths, like we are complaining now about popularization of this agenda, we want that youths be acquainted, youths get to know this agenda, youths get to follow up this agenda, and youths get to really become involved in this agenda, because it is going to go along with them and they are going to see the proceeds of this agenda. Our topic for today, I remind those who are just joining us, the Agenda 2063 is unpopular, is a communication strategy of the AU to create awareness, proving effective in the continent and in the diaspora. And we're just complaining here that most of those in the diaspora are not very aware of this agenda. And it really pains our hearts because we are doing everything humanly possible on this platform, the Sompon Global TV, to inform the youths who are out there about an agenda which, like we said, is for Africans and by Africans. Thanks so much. With me in studio again is Pennelope, who will be handling the last 26 minutes of this program. Like I said, Penelope is the usual face on this program, though she's been a bit absent, she's back with us and is promising to always be there. Penelope, it's always a pleasure having you in the studio. You
Thank
are
you.
equally a diasporan, and you say it is this program that actually made you to know about the agenda. And
Yes.
of course, after having known about the agenda, you must have read through about it. And do you think that the AU is actually, or the communication strategy of the AU is actually on the ground to really create awareness for this agenda? Or do you think it's too early to start evaluating whether the communication strategies are really working?
I don't wish to sound negative with regards to this. I'm obviously all for Pan-Africanism and promoting unity and ensuring that we, again, are self-determined and uh, thinking about our own problems and providing solutions to it. I think my frustration just comes from the question of, this agenda was put forward 7 years ago, 2013, and it's hoping to go on for the next 30 years. They did indicate that they want to ensure that every, person has access to it. But when we look on the ground at the moment, Wi-Fi access is a luxury. It's not something that is accessible to every home or to anyone because of unemployment, because of civil unrest in most of our African communities. So, with regards to that, I am hopeful with the mindset, but I'm also asking for the practicalities. Within the last 7 years, has anything been put in place to ensure that this is something that's being rolled out across all these nations and across a lot of people so they have access to this information? Um, you indicated about including the agenda in the curriculum. That's a good way to start bringing awareness to ensure that it's part of our sort of pride decorum, to think of Africa in that manner. However, it's not, again, in our curriculum, and that's something that they could start reconsidering, ensuring it's also that it's within our media, in the news. Independence Days, we could have that flagship all over the place talking about the frameworks and what the agenda is seeking to do. So, and it comes to questions, if these things are not being put in place practically, do the people who have put this forward, do they believe in it as much as they have put it out there? Does that make sense? So the question is, I know that the debate team, especially what we do now, is to try and bring that awareness, but no agency can work in silo to produce this such work. We cannot put this responsibility just on the civilians. And I think civilians have really been trying to um, stand for Africa. And I don't think the issue is civilians. I don't think the issue is the people. I have a problem with the top heavy mindset, that's the structure that's in place at the moment, where leaders sort of have power and control. And that's where the issue lies. So civilians are ready for that change because a lot of them are feeling oppressed and feel unrepresented. So I don't think that is the issue. And I think once we keep putting this information and this pressure on civilians, and people are tired of that, and that's my frustration as well, because it's not fair on them. Until we start holding our leaders accountable and ensuring that those two sit and work together to produce something that's practical, then we could have an Agenda 2063 that works for all Africans. At the moment, this is just information that's being put forward, and I don't feel like civilians are being represented because there's nothing practically being done to change what is happening on the ground.
Okay, we have a beautiful comment here coming from Mori Okeyo. He says, I believe that the state of the African Union and their ability to deliver their promises is still influenced hugely by the African governance. Once we work on the governance of member states, the AU will function very well. The diasporans cannot influence change or changes as much. In order to do so, they must be in Africa and participate in the reform processes. However, they can offer support by petitioning the president to make certain changes and also help in educating the youth about their rights. Thank you so much for that powerful one. We are happy that
Yes.
you're following us up and equally participating. Penelope, you will bear with me that we cannot find much information, much popularization of this Agenda 2063, either in schools or around, because under normal circumstances, an agenda that is actually for youth should have been popping up on the when you open any page. That should be what should pop up already, so that you can start asking questions. What is happening? What is this about? Any page I open, Agenda 2063 pops up online, because that is what I see. Some adverts online that they really insist that you must open the page before you can get to the next page. If not, that page remains like that. And sometimes, personally, I will just switch off from that type of advert and try elsewhere to open a page of that sort. Now, like I was saying, we have to do something to popularize this agenda. And I want to ask you a very personal question. You say you got to know about this agenda through the debate. How, as an individual, do you think you can contribute in making this agenda known to other people, either those around you, those walking around you, those in your neighborhood, those around your uh, church and areas where you actually frequent? Because it is depending on each and every African for this to actually be known by everybody. How can you fulfill your own part of this difficult task? Let me put it that way.
It is a difficult task for me to actually go out and inform everyone that's around me. I would first need to feel represented with my views. I would need to feel that I'm working very closely with either the representatives of the AU who are trying to forge this forward. Then I could strongly and passionately go out and encourage others to take the same stance. However, if I don't feel represented or don't feel like my voice is being heard, then it's quite difficult for me to believe in something that I don't believe works. And I think to engage young people, considering that they are 60% of the African population, I think the focus of the AU needs to really start looking at attracting young people rather than putting forward things that I think can seem outdated, in all honesty. I think there needs to be a conversation, maybe a focus group or a forum where young people are sitting and co-designing the AU 2063. So, asking our voices, having a debate like this, a call where every young person from different parts of Africa are being asked about their issues on the ground that they need. Unemployment is on the rise in Africa. I think that the number was 420 million uh, young people between the ages of, I think, 18 to 24 are unemployed. That's ridiculous. And if we don't see that as a priority to encourage jobs, to start creating jobs, then what we are discussing right now could fall on deaf ears, because if you're not eating, if you don't have lights over your head, you won't prioritize what we're talking about right here. And I think a lot of young people do not feel like they are part of this movement. And it just feels like the people who are either are wealthy, and there's that disparity between rich and poor again. It falls on people who have the leisure and the luxury to access the internet again, who have better schooling, who have better, and that's what we're trying to move away from. That's what I am about anyways. So if that's not encouraged to ensure that every child or every young person has access to this information, that this is part of their day-to-day requirement, then where for me it just doesn't feel like it's something I could encourage. However, I am doing my little. I do tell people about it. I do tell people about the debate, and this is why I'm on here, because I care about social impact, but not necessarily just honest. I want it to be that we're reaching those who are social, like from low socioeconomic backgrounds, who are poor, and that's the bridge I want to, the bridge I want to close, if that makes sense.
Our network is breaking, and we're looking at the possible means through which this agenda can actually be popularized. And we have one of our viewer, Lee Weil, who says that we can popularize our Agenda 2063 through distribution of posters and flyers, just like the Vision 2030 SDGs. Sorry for that. It's all over our govern, government and parastatal offices. I think that is what she wants to write. And she continues by saying that even our national state TVs, televisions, and newspapers, this can also be done. Thank you so much for that propositions. And Rain and the adds equally that this can also be included in the primary school programs too, that will relate to the Agenda 2063 and will understand they have a role. Thank you so much. You're really in line with us because we're already thinking of something like that. So if we have to involve or include these on the newspapers, on a small slot, a space on a newspaper where every newspaper that is sold has one, two lines, Agenda 2063, get to know about it. Check agenda this on the on online. Many people will get to start asking questions. What is this that is always on our slots, on our newspaper slots, and the agenda actually will be popularized. Today we are looking at the unpopular nature of the Agenda 2063 and if the AU actually is creating awareness and whether this awareness is proving effective in the continent and in the diaspora. And from all indications, given the number of people even are online now watching this program, after all the publicity that is usually done, we can see that many people still have to be told about this agenda and equally to be encouraged to read about the agenda and to know that this is for Africans by Africans, like we already had on this platform. Thank you for all those who are watching us live on Facebook and on YouTube. This is your platform, this is your space. Continue to send in your contributions and continue to share our page so that many youths can join us so that together we will involve ourselves in this agenda just like we are already doing. There are many people equally who have got to know about this agenda through this program, the debate, and this program comes up every Monday, this time at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Thank you so much for always being there and for watching our programs. We are looking at unpopular nature of this agenda. Penelope, uh, what can you suggest to the AU? We have had already some suggestions. Maybe you have another suggestion that you can actually make to the AU. This one now will touch the governments. Maybe through the governments, they can be able to implement some strategies that can be put in place so that everybody can actually get to know this agenda. What suggestions can you give the AU and others involved for a more effective and efficient communication strategy as far as Agenda 2063 is concerned?
Okay, the suggestions I'll give, I would say engage the young people, really reach out to the young people. Don't see young people as a threat, but see them as um, innovators, obviously the next leaders, but there needs to be an element of focus and strategy around that. So either having regular focus groups with various young people, provide jobs. I think that's another way of actually engaging young people who are educated, especially who are passionate about Africa and want to make the change. See those young people as talent. And listen to their voices. I think young people are the future. Utilize their skills. There's a lot of young people who are great at IT, even just changing, no offense, the website of the African Union and having a young person or young people drive that. It changes just the messaging. It changes, it makes people feel like there's a level of ownership with regards to that. Let them be the driving force. And then you'll be able to reach the audience that you need to push it forward without even doing anything. So use the talent that we have on the ground. There's a lot of young people who are very capable, who are very competent, who just don't have the opportunity, especially from low income backgrounds, going to those communities, just providing, I don't know, after school clubs, and then harnessing those talents to start providing that message forward for the AU. But there has to be yeah, education, jobs, and having young people at the forefront, having young people also in high leadership roles who are competent to do the job because they are, and trusting that they're capable.
Okay, still on the debate here, we have presented many topics. We've looked at education of the girl child, if youths actually have the potentials to drive Africa ahead. And all of these, like we said, is always linked to the different aspirations of the Agenda 2063. And we have many coming. We have another overview, I will say, is we can popularize this agenda also by talking to friends and family members about it. Let's include it in our normal conversations as this concerns us all. You see, there are possible ways that each and every one of us can popularize and make known this agenda. Because when you read the agenda and you visualize what Africa will actually be if this agenda is implemented, you discover that it is just the best idea that was ever put on paper. And all we are asking for is that this agenda be popularized and that what has been put in place or what has been written down be put practically, like you said already in the beginning of this program, so that each African can see, each African can experience, and all of this will make life very beautiful. You cried about Africa, areas in Africa without potable water, without good hospitals, and you equally said that the COVID issue has laid bare the lapses of the implementation of this Agenda 2063. Because you know, most of our able people, most of the stakeholders, most of our rulers used to just go out for health problems, for visiting. But now that everybody is grounded in his or her country, it becomes very difficult for them even to go out to stroll because just national parks are not well harnessed, hospitals are not well equipped, and it's like what they have been doing and thinking that is going to haunt others is actually haunting them today. So we are hoping that as COVID has come, we will call it going to be an eye opener for those who have not been doing anything in their countries to know that whatever you have to do, it is going to help somebody. And if it doesn't help somebody, you may call it be just the person that this will have to help. So we are encouraging all our youths who are out there that they should put hands in deck. I know that many are aware of the program, but it doesn't mean anything to them because they say it is far fetched. We are talking about 2063, and many people are saying, "Oh, by then I will not be there again." But you will just be surprised that 2063 will come and meet you so strong, and you'll be regretting that the things you were supposed to have done, you did not do them, and now they are haunting you. So thanks to all those who are sending us different proposals on how we can implement this. I think in our own small corners, we should always
I guess that's internet failure. Um,
and continue the program. Thanks. The network is back. That is what Africa is. We talk about an African where we can have free and speedy network, but we still just have problems with network. And you imagine how an university can be implemented in Africa. So we still have quite much to
let's
do.
do this.
Penny, that is Africa, and we have a topic here that we're talking about these network issues. You see that the things that were supposed to be implemented already 10 years since this was talked about are
No,
still
but
far-fetched.
the difficulty is it
A
seems
lot of
like
ways.
the difficulty that is it's not like it's not there's no internet in Africa, we're unable to roll it out. It's just that it's not there's no the value chain, sort of like it's run that it doesn't run to benefit the whole country, and that's the problem that we have. So I don't know. It's complex, I think.
It's quite complex, and we are working to make sure that we achieve this Africa. And I won't go through this program without talking about Professor Lumumba, who is always posting very encouraging words. And the last one that I watched was when he talked about this 10-year implementation plans that were put forward by the AU, and he was calling on the AU to sit up and see that these aspirations or strategies that were put in place to be, realized in 10 years' time. I actually realized. And when I watched it, I was like, there are people out there who actually are following up this agenda and want that Africa actually should be something that, or a country, sorry, that we can write home about. He always actually
Mr. Bolivar,
personally,
can I ask, so who is going to be evaluating these outcomes? Who's holding, how do
that is
we
the
check back
one.
into?
Normally, after this 10-year lapse, AU will have to sit back and evaluate to see if they have actually achieved all the things that they thought or put in place to be implemented during this 10-year program. So
Okay.
we will equally be joining them to evaluate, just like we are doing already, looking at just the communication aspect of it to see if communication has actually been done. And from every indication, we can say that many people are not aware, meaning that communication is not very, vulgarized. Many people are not aware, and so we are hoping that something will still be done by the AU actually, so that this agenda gets to be known by many people. We are doing our own little in our own corner, and we hope that through this program, just like you, many people will get to, know about this agenda and equally put hands in deck to see that the agenda goes through. I wish to appreciate already Professor Lumumba, and I'm hoping that one day I will have him on this platform to actually talk again about this agenda and how far it has gone. Penny, we are going closer to the end of our program. Time is always very short, and the discussion keeps, just getting sweeter as we are going to the end. And one last question, if not, what advice or word of encouragement can you give to those who are participating on this debate to the Sompon Social Service for their quest to actually popularize this Agenda 2063? What will be your word of advice to the
Okay.
Sompon Social Team and to the Sompon Global TV, as well as the debate program that is bent on making this Agenda 2063 happen?
Yeah. So I just want to reach out to all. I specifically want to represent the young people and say that I am so proud of you, especially all the young people who went out to protest with NSAS, who went to protest in Namibia with the gender-based violence. I believe you guys are the true advocates of the Agenda 2063 because you're asking for what is owed to you, which is freedom, which is safety, which is security, which is democracy. And I think you guys are the real MVPs. You guys are the ones at the forefront, really trying to make a change for Africa, and continue to speak up, continue to get engaged with politics. I think 2020 has really allowed us young people to take position and don't stop, keep speaking out, keep trying to seek solutions. I've seen most of you are mobilizing yourselves and coming up with small charitable ventures. This is what we need. This is the Agenda 2060 that we're speaking about. Is don't be ashamed to speak up. Don't be ashamed to question certain things. That is part of democracy. That is part of movement. We speak about, Dr. Lumumba. That's why he is as good as he is. He was radical. He stood for something different, and that's what we're seeking for in the next generation. So continue doing what you're doing. Continue fighting for Africa, fighting for your for your brothers and sisters to have equal rights in what we know we deserve, which is democracy, and to have just running water, electricity. These are basics. And I am sure by 2063, we will have them because we're doing the right thing. So continue doing what you're doing. You guys are the real MVPs. That's my
Penelope, it's
message.
breaking day, and we are going to the end of the program. We'll talk about popularization of the Agenda 2063. And if we have gathered something today, is that all of us are supposed to put our hands on deck, spread this Agenda 2063 so that everyone is going to know about it, and that youths equally should join us on this platform so that together we should spread the news about Agenda 2063 through our schools, through newspapers, through posters, so that everyone will get to know about 2063 agenda for Africa and by Africans. Thank you so much, Penelope, for being there
Thank
with me on
you.
this program. Hope to see you again some other time so that we continue to popularize the Agenda 2063. Goodbye
Yay.
for now. It was a pleasure
Good
having
night.
you.
Take care. Thank you.
Goodbye. Network is bad.